All right, Seattle hockey fans, it is a Seattle Kraken game day. The Seattle Kraken, like myself, are on the East Coast. We've got a 5-game road trip, and it starts with the New York Islanders tonight. Let's talk about all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to an episode of Locked On Kraken. I'm your host, Erica L. Ayala, as you can tell, on the road, as usual. But so are our favorite boys, the Seattle Kraken. That's right, we're coming out of All-Star break. I was in South Florida doing some women's hockey stuff. I did get to take in some of the NHL festivities. Unfortunately, we did not get to see Maddie Beniers, but we'll talk about that coming up and a lot more. This episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Where we're going to get started today is with, we got a lot of news. So why don't we start with, finally, the Seattle Kraken did something I've been begging them to do since the trade deadline last year, and they've added a defenseman. That's right, we add Jacob Megna. A few fast facts you can see here on the screen. I'll read them for you, but we get Megna from the San Jose Sharks for a 4th-round pick in the upcoming draft. We get to select what number in the 4th round, but he has a career best 12 points in 48 games for the San Jose Sharks this season. He recorded 25 points, 214 blocks, and 184 hits in his 135 regular season NHL games. And he's already practiced with the team. So let's take you over, actually, to a little bit of Megna speaking today at morning skate.
Been like the last couple days, jumping and joining the team on the road?
Yeah, it was crazy 24 hours, but it was good to get in here early and get practice yesterday and this morning. So it's been good overall. We were in Tampa, so it wasn't too far of a flight.
Describe yourself as a player for fans who aren't familiar with your game.
Definitely more of a stay-at-home defenseman, trying to take care of my own end and get pucks to guys who can go make plays in the offensive zone.
How much have you watched this team, and what are your expectations of them coming in?
Not a ton. I played against them, I think, 3 times over the last 2 years, and every night, you just tell they play fast, they play hard, and they don't give you for free. So it's a good, hard-working team, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
It looks like you're playing tonight. Can you?
So that was Megna. Apologies if there was any delay or lag there, but dealing with the confines of travel. Anyway, calls himself a stay-at-home defenseman, a player that likes to retrieve the puck and get it up to the players, the forwards that can do something in the offensive zone. Dave Haxtell also talked about Megna. He will be playing with Carson Soucy tonight. We do see that Justin Schultz is back in the lineup, but he's on that 4th D pair along with Fleury, or at least that's how they lined up for practice. So I do think that this move for Megna probably means that Schultz is not 100%. Again, though, I was all good with the Seattle Kraken getting more defensive. Actually, speaking of the Islanders, who we take on tonight, and we'll get into those stats in a minute, we heard from Gil Martin. I was actually on the Locked On NHL show. So earlier this week on Monday's show of Locked On NHL, I actually was on with Gil Martin. It was literally an hour before the news break. Gil and I sat down and recorded the Monday show, or the Monday segment, on Sunday, and an hour before the Magnus news broke, we were talking. I was telling Gil that I'd love to see us at the trade deadline trade for a defenseman, and we do get a defenseman. I did say that it would likely be for picks because we have those in hand. I also felt that if we were going to make any moves at or before the trade deadline, that it wasn't going to be for a mega superstar. This is going to be something that gives us just enough to make us more competitive for this year in the playoffs. So I think that's what Megna gives us. And I'm excited to see him hit the ice tonight. We're going to talk about the matchup between the Islanders that's coming up tonight. I also want to talk about some activations around Black History Month, not only for the Seattle Kraken, but throughout the hockey community. But coming up next on Locked On Kraken, let's get to know our enemy for the night. That's right. We're taking on the Long Island or the New York Islanders, excuse me. We're taking on the New York Islanders, and I want to make sure you are in the know. So we'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Kraken. This episode Locked On Kraken is brought to you by FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in the United States, and that, of course, is FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, then that's even better. They have so many great features that make sports betting fun and easy. So you can go to the FanDuel app. They've got your no sweat first bet, or you'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That sounds pretty good to me. And I'm not a betting woman, but I can tell you that sounds pretty good to me. Of course, everyone's looking at the Super Bowl, but if you have the NHL regular season, the NBA is about to go into their all-star break. There's plenty of action, and we want you to check it all out at FanDuel. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no sweat first bet for Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily routine. I know I've been gone for a while. I've been on the road. And the last show that I did, I was looking at the video in particular, and I looked gassed. I looked so exhausted. I'm not sure I look much better. And due to some travel changes, I'm sitting on the airport floor right now. So hopefully we're back healthy. We've got Beniers, looks like he's been back. We've got Magnus. We talked about Chris Juger is another player that made his way back to practice, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was a 4-1 win for the Seattle Kraken on January 1st. Or I said last game of 2022. Sorry, it was the first game of 2023. Knew it was around there. So we're coming in with, in our last 10, a 6-3-1 record. We won our last game. The Islanders on a 4-4-2. They played last night. They played the Phillies, and they saved Sorokin for us. And you can listen to Locked On Islanders with Gil Martin. He talked about that. Team stats overall, the penalty kill really good for the Islanders. They are at an 83.2% clip, 4th best in the league. Our power play sits at 20th at 20.3%. Our penalty kill at 72.3%. Face-offs, I'm curious to see, especially because they got Bo Horvat, and he's supposed to be really helping them from the face-off dot. Again, Gil Martin talked a little bit about his first performance. So we'll see what goes down there. Ultimately, I thought the Seattle Kraken played okay when we played the Islanders on January 1st. I wasn't overly impressed, and as it turned out, some of that fatigue became a factor later. So I'm very curious to see how we play against this Islanders squad. They're coming in good. Dave Haxtell talked about it earlier today, knows that they have a game already played, whereas the Seattle Kraken are getting back to the ice. They'll be well rested, which I do think we needed, but they might not be in as much of game form as the Islanders, who, of course, played last night. We do know that Martin Jones is going to get the start. Dave Haxtell did not reveal anything else about the roster. He said basically you'll find out when we take the ice. So there's still a few things that they're trying to figure out there. but it's going to be Martin Jones. I want to see the Seattle Kraken really come out crisp here. I do think there will be a little bit of rust comparative to the Islanders, so I think we'll probably need to get going in the second period. I really want to see us get aggressive, really skate out some of what we're seeing there. And, we'll see what happens. But I do think that the Islanders have the opportunity, just given kind of what we know about our team, probably going to win the first period. But if we can hang on and keep it, if we can keep them scoreless, that'd be ideal. But I do see the Islanders maybe getting 1 or 2 in the first up against Jones. And then I think we need to come in really sharp. I don't think that's the worst thing for the Seattle Kraken, but I do expect us to have a little bit of a slow start. So I guess we'll see what happens. But coming up next on the show, I want to talk a little bit about Black History Month and the United by Hockey Tour. I mentioned I was in Florida. I was able to catch up with the new mobile museum. They've redone a lot of things inside the museum. It looks amazing. I'll talk about it more on an upcoming show. But I also want to talk about the Seattle Kraken, their new Black History Month jersey. I've been wearing my hoodie on this road trip, and my road trip doesn't end until next weekend. So I'll be wearing that hoodie along the way. But there's an interesting comment that I came across on social media that I want to address. So let's talk about that next on Locked On Kraken. Episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Now, Athletic Greens is something that I really enjoy using. I tell you that I especially like using it as someone who travels as much as I do. And so Athletic Greens, in 1 scoop and 8 ounces of water, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. In short, everything that you really need to keep your body going, not only to stay healthy, but to stay regular, to stay energized. And those are all hard things to do when you're always changing your time zone, where you're sleeping, all of that stuff. I really like this also because as someone who's tried to keep up my health, especially maintaining a really tough road schedule, I know how expensive it can be. And so Athletic Greens has really taken all of that out of the equation by having 1 scoop powder formula with, again, all of those 75 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, etc. So you're not paying $100 for like 20 different pills and supplements. You can all have it in 1 scoop for the cost of essentially whatever your favorite coffee of the day is. I don't drink coffee, so I can't relate to that. All the more reason I love Athletic Greens. And to make this easy morning routine even easier, Athletic Greens is going to give you a 1-year free supply of the immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's /NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thank you, as always, for joining us here on Locked On Kraken. I am sorry that I was away for a while, but just like the guys, I really needed a rest. And perhaps like our guys, I'm not confident I got enough rest, but it's a game day, so we'll find out later tonight. I will be taking in the game live from The Rock, the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, Thursday. And I will be taking in practice tomorrow. So if you're not already, make sure you follow me. I'm right there at elindsay08 on Instagram, on Twitter. And of course, you can follow at Locked On Kraken for all the goods as well. I want to talk a little bit about the United by Hockey Mobile Museum. That is the Hockey History Museum. Every year for the last 5 or so years has kicked off with Black History Month and really taken us through the rest of the regular season. The Mobile Museum started in Sunrise, or I guess technically they were in Fort Lauderdale, for the Beach Bash and all of the special festivities happening around NHL All-Star. I had a great time. If you don't listen to Locked On Panthers, you might want to go listen. Armando was able to be my special guest for some of the, I guess they were invite only. I didn't realize they were invite only, but went to some invite only parties. So again, if you're not following me on social media, check that out. Also, check that out for Black Rosie Media. I'll have some more on that. But I really loved what they did by did with the United by Hockey Museum. If you've been to the Mobile Museum before, you notice that they kind of have the history of the Maritimes and Willie O'Ree and Herb Carnegie in one section, and then they had one little tiny slither of women's history, and then you really weren't seeing too many other cultures or people represented. They integrated all of that. It's not sectioned off. It's a larger museum. There's an interactive where you can call a hockey play. I didn't get to participate in that, at least not in Florida. I should be catching up with the truck elsewhere, but I didn't get to practice my chops. But part of the reason I've been on the road is because I'm calling PHF games. I've got a Hockey East game on Friday and all of this good stuff. So I'm still getting in my practice. But if you want to practice your broadcasting, you can. I think there's an Al Montoya clip, a few other clips that you can choose from. So that's been really great. Another thing that we're starting to see is also that the NHL is integrating some of the national team players from the women's teams, United States and Canada, a little bit more. In my opinion, Sarah Nurse was the best thing about the entire All-Star weekend as far as the ice hockey activations, including that the Panthers apparently on the spot at a youth clinic offered her a job. I don't know if she's going to take it. I did get to talk to Sarah. It was before this job offer, but I did like what she said, just generally speaking. I'm not going to get into our conversation because it was just in passing. But what I took away from her conversation is that she's really enjoying getting into hockey. I interviewed her earlier, and there will be something coming out about this for Forbes, but she had a really gnarly injury right before her last Olympics, in which she became the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal in the ice hockey tournament. She broke all kinds of Olympic records, tournament records, and all of this not even knowing if she was going to be able to make the Olympic Games, let alone skate in some of the training camps that they had. So she's a fantastic story. She has so much joy around her, surrounding her hockey career and all of it. And I'm just so happy for her. So that's amazing. But I also want to bring attention to the Seattle Kraken. I mentioned this before in the last segment, but they once again have brought in a designer to handle their special jerseys for Black History Month. This is from the Seattle Kraken Twitter account. In celebration of Black History Month, the Seattle Kraken will wear these specialty warm-up jerseys designed by local multi-artist REG on 2/18, drawing inspiration from the African American flag and elements from the Pacific Northwest. And they mean the Pan-African flag because there's really not an African American flag. Anyway, whatever. These jerseys will be available through the One Roof Foundation auction. So let's take a look at these. I love that they have the Mount. I don't ever know if I say this right, so you're gonna have to tell me. Is it Mount Rainier or Rainier? So I don't know if it's Rainier or Rainier, but you can see the outline there, and then just some beautiful artistry here. A little bit of a closer look here. Mount Rainier stands resolute above the Rainier Valley neighborhood, topped with the Kraken S. The sun represents the ascension of the Kraken and the spirit of victory while capturing the energy of a new day. I like that. And then this is the one that people made interesting comments about, but let's first talk about it. The anchor mark has been combined with the Ankh symbol from Northern Africa, which symbolizes life. And that's because the hook represents the womb, and the lower part of the Ankh represents the male energy, thus life. The green, black, and red are colorways in reference to the Pan-African flag. I've never heard it called the African American flag, so maybe that's just something I'm not familiar with, but I know it as the Pan-African flag, so that's what I'm going to say. Also, you can celebrate Black history and not be African American. So like Sarah Nurse is not from America, so she's Black Canadian. Anyway, that's just a little thing that burns my grits sometimes. Anyway, the comment that I saw on social media that I thought was interesting, I don't want to say that I was offended, but I just thought it was maybe a little bit of a stretch, is that, Northern Africa and like aquatic symbols and sea symbols have a weird history. Okay, well, there's a lot of things to say here, including that, well, I guess Ghana is in the western or the northern part of the African continent, but I think the comment was referring to the West African coast, and that being where a lot of colonizers came to enslave people from the continent of Africa. This is true. This actually happened. Then, of course, there is the ripping off of resources of the continent of Africa forever and since the slave trade. I mean, yeah, so that is a part of history. I think the reason I've found it as off-putting is because there's a lot of Black history that has happened since that really nasty history. Not all of Black history has been amazing, but certainly the last thought that I have about the sea and Black people is not slavery. So I don't know where that's coming from. That would just seem like a weird thing to say. I mean, there are Black swimmers. There's actually one that is a host on the Locked On Network. It's the first ever Black swimmer at UNC. You should definitely give Candace Cooper a look and Google her. Happy Black History Month to Candace. So I thought that was an interesting comment. Like I said, I'm not offended, but I also think that when we want to highlight certain communities, not everything about those communities is the destruction that we've had to endure. There's a lot more to our history. I will never be one to shy away from a history lesson. And sometimes we can enjoy symbols and the blending of those symbols without them having to be controversial or triggering for that matter. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Like I said, I will be wearing my inaugural Black History Month hoodie. Everyone at All Star absolutely loved it. And when I say All Star, I actually mean PHF All Star because I was at that. And then I was at NHL All Star and it was a big hit there as well. So, I mean, I really hope that the Seattle Kraken make this design available online. I think they did for last year's. That's actually how I got mine. It was sent to me. Very grateful. I have a hat and a hoodie and I'll be swagged out. Anyway, that's our show for today. Happy game day. I'm not going to do my usual refrain because I'm in public and this has already been a wild ride. So, but happy game day. But you know how we do. Be kind to yourself and to one another. I tried to do that by getting a minimal amount of rest while on the road. So thanks for sticking with me. But be kind to yourself for sure. Be kind to each other. And tonight we hit the ice and we say, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you post game and certainly tomorrow after Seattle Kraken practice. Peace.